Watch a movie, get inspired, give back, help a charity. It's time for a movie karma watch party. Hi, everybody. I'm Jared Milrad. Welcome to a Movie Karma Watch Party. This is a series that we do to celebrate socially conscious filmmakers and change makers all around the world who are using the power of story for good. And today I'm really excited to welcome a special guest, a filmmaker who we just celebrated as part of our Show for Change Film Festival. And her name is Angel Livas. Angel, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're really excited to share your film today. We're going to share a clip of your film, which we just celebrated, called I Am Black, the Enlightenment. And again, this was recognized as part of our Show for Change Film Festival. We're going to show a clip of the film today, and then we're going to do a Q&A in the back end. So we had a bunch of questions for you, Angel, I think, as you saw. But to start off, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about your background as a filmmaker and kind of how you got to make this particular project.
So my filmmaking experience is not very long. I do a lot of like video production, digital storytelling, things of that nature. This project was more of I'm going to say a love and passion project. And so when the idea hit me to help kind of tell the story, to convey, really what's been happening in the Black community, it was something that I just got my team together because I have a media company here in DC. I got a team together and everybody rode with me and said, okay, we're down for the cause. And it was, it was a very interesting almost 3 weeks. We did this project from the top of June till about June 19th. And it was definitely a project of love.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes across really clearly. So congratulations on the project. I know how hard passion projects can be.
Yeah, thank you.
I was curious. I saw your background as an entrepreneur and empowering others. It sounds like quite often to pursue their entrepreneurial journeys, which we also appreciate as an entrepreneurial company and nonprofit ourselves. Could you talk a little bit about that? Did that inform this project in any particular way, or your interest in creating this type of narrative?
My goal is always to help educate people and allow them to live their best life. And if I can tell just a quick story,
Yeah.
it really stemmed from one of the projects that I was doing at the top of COVID. It was called Angel's Prayer Breakfast. And I would, do like this whole like hour of power conversation. And one of the gospel artists had shared this experience that he had with the police. And he was saying how, the police were trying to pull him over on a dark road. He had his 2 children in the back seat, and he didn't feel comfortable just pulling over in this wooded area with the police, and it was just them and nobody. It's not like a high traffic road. So he said he, went into like a gas station where it was well lit. Officer essentially him out of the car and was cursing him out like, why did it take you so long to pull over? Are you running from me? What's going on? His 2 children are in the back seat crying. And I was in disbelief that this happened to him because, I mean, he's a middle class, citizen, completely non-threatening. And then to just have this idea that this could happen to him, and even me as a Black person is like, no way, that did not happen to you. Then I felt at fault, like, if I feel this way and I'm Black, what do other cultures understand about really what it means to be a Black man in America? And that was kind of like the genesis for the project, and why I felt it was really important to make sure that that messaging was pushed out there.
Right. Uh, And obviously the particular time that I feel like we're in as a society, the conversations that we're having as white folks, as folks of color, um, seem to be more expansive perhaps than ever. I was curious to to get your reading on that, because uh, as we talk to underrepresented filmmakers of color, creators of color, it does seem to be both a challenging moment because there are a lot of questions being asked, of Black folks in particular, and people of color, but also maybe a hopeful moment, in this moment of people, perhaps, in particular white people, thinking about racial injustice, systemic racism, maybe for the first time in their life.
I would absolutely agree. It's actually very funny because I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood,
Uh-huh.
and like to the point where my brother and I, there was one other Black family in our neighborhood where we grew up. And so the fact that the project is called I Am Black, like one of the questions people often ask me, well, what does that mean to you? And it's interesting because my high school friends, my elementary school friends are all white, right? And so, not all, but majority white. And so they even could like watch the film and they were like, Angel, I had no idea that I actually feel like I have prejudices. And I was completely ignorant to it. And these are like my best friend, even, this was a conversation we had. And it was raising the consciousness. It was really to do what the film is titled, to enlighten, to show people something different that they may not have even thought of or been cognizant that they were a victim of. Because a lot of times it stems from like your family and things that you see and things that you hear that you don't know, like this isn't, the way that things are supposed to be. And I don't feel like it's necessarily your fault because this is the environment in which you grew up. But if you know better, then you can do better. And so that was the goal of the film.
Right. And it seems that perhaps by calling it out, by naming it, there's a lot of power in that. I know our team was struck by a few things that were in the film.
Yes, tell me, because I'm curious about this part. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's why we're here. So, I mean, the one thing that came up was, this question around what does it mean to be a Black man in America in the 21st century, which I can tell you, and you already know this, but one of the reasons we have our film festival is to elevate voices of people who often don't get heard, and it seems that particularly the voices you have in the film, specifically Black men, don't often get heard in our society and don't often get listened to, particularly when we talk about issues like mental health, and so forth. So I'm curious how you would answer that question about what does it mean to be a Black man in America, and what were some of the messages that came out to you, the themes that came out to you as you pulled this film together?
So that's a great question. It's very funny because I feel like one of the main things that came out is I don't know one Black man, and I think John talks about this in the film, that is not afraid to be pulled over by the police. And I would even say that that's not just Black men, but I would even say Black women, right? Because of what happens to you. I think there's one part in the film where Cameron says, your butt cheeks clench up, you grab the steering wheel, you just get scared, you turn the music down, and it's like a total experience that you go through. And because you almost are conditioned to this because you're so used to it. It's happened all your life, right? That it's kind of like it's unfortunate at the end of the day. It's an unfortunate reality. I think the other part is Black men are used to feeling as though they are a threat. When they come into certain rooms, when they go into certain spaces, they feel as though people look at them as though they're a threat. And one of the things that I was always very mindful of, because I have two young boys, ages 6 and 7, and I always wonder, at what point do my two cute, adorable little Black boys, at what point do they become a threat to you?
Mm-hmm.
And, so it's always this fine line of understanding, like, okay, like, how do you manage this? And I would say the last thing is to your point, the Black man is very rarely heard. In certain situations, people automatically look at them and they create a stigma around who they are and they rock with that. You may have certain opportunities to prove people wrong, but for the most part, it's an automatic perception of who you are. And some Black men is just like, you know what, it's not even worth me trying to prove you wrong. Think what you want to think. And I think that kind of does a disservice to the Black community.
Right, and I think especially when you raise the issues of mental health and just sort of allowing Black men to talk without interruption. We had a chance to talk to the great Purvis Taylor, who, if folks don't know, is a life coach, a Black man, American man who talks very candidly about his work with Black men on issues of mental health, and how, to your point, I think was raised in the film. Folks just feel numb. They just feel exhausted and don't have the time or space or invitation to speak openly. And so that's one thing that we thought was particularly powerful. The other question we had was around, what you think, in light of George Floyd's brutal murder, the murder of so many other Black men and women. Breonna Taylor was obviously asked about at the debate this week with Kamala Harris and Pence. Wondering, sort of what this political and social moment with the election forthcoming, what you think this presents in terms of maybe opportunities for systemic change or conversations that we need to be having in a different way or in a bigger way.
So I'm very probably different in this area. Like, I feel like conversations are great, but it has to be with the right people who can impact that change. One of the things that, like I said, one question that people often ask me too is, do you think that Black social organizations like NAACP and like civil rights organizations, that they're still relevant? And it depends, right? Are you actually going before with the people who have the power to create change, to do some things differently? And so I even feel like with this film, I can say, after we did this film, when it initially aired, we did a panel conversation with some heavy hitters like, Michael Eric Dyson and Tommy Dortch and Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley. And the conversation was about, okay, well, how do we move this needle forward? So people can listen and people can be enlightened, but they actually have to take action and not just hear what we want, but actually be able to say, you know what, I'm going to rally and stand behind you. Here's what I can do. It's not that everybody has to do the same thing, which is, I think, a lot of talking, but like, if you're good in this area and you have contacts where you can rally, some people, and you can start forming meetings with congressional representatives, people who have the power to change, then that is really where the power is.
Right, and that leads to the notion of privilege, right? If folks are in spaces where, white spaces, for example, I know I had this conversation as a gay man and around, LGBTQ equality, right? Like, folks are like, what can I do? And it's like, well, when you're with your straight buddies, like, if they say something inappropriate, or, if they're,
right,
or if they're advocating against my equality, maybe you should speak up in those moments.
Exactly. Like, they have the slogan right now, if you see something, say something. Like, if you hear something, say something.
Hey everybody, I'm Jared Milrad, the founder of Movie Karma. Thanks so much for stopping by our page. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this channel with your friends and family so we can continue to transform entertainment into action.